Hey guys, thank you for leaving all of those lovely comments. So now we know what this series is called. It's actually Hair Science 101. So let's go ahead with the second episode. This is the difference between the big chop and transitioning. So I myself had chemically processed, really badly damaged hair, and I transitioned for about a year before I did a big chop, and I saw a lot more growth after the big chop than I had done for that whole time whilst I was transitioning. And I've mentioned that on my channel before, and quite a few of you guys were a little bit confused with the terms, and I understand why, because you know it's not completely obvious what I mean when I say that. So when you transition, it's a little bit like going in at the shallow end. So you make some changes, you start using better products, sulfate-free products, which we spoke about in the last episode. You start treating your hair a whole lot better, and you start to see your natural growth coming out from the top of your scalp. So many people haven't seen their natural hair texture in years because they've been relaxing and they've been relaxing all of the growth, and they never see their natural hair texture. It's just not something that is ever allowed to grow naturally. So for lots of people that's enough. They're like, whoa, look at all this natural texture, I've got to learn how to deal with that, and then we can start dealing with the rest of my hair. But the trouble for a lot of people when they're transitioning is that they might then have two textures of hair on their head. They might have the straight chemically treated hair at the ends, and then they might have the curls on top, and you see a ton of that in people's transitioning photos, and that can be really hard to deal with because you don't necessarily know how to treat each section of hair. I would just say that make sure you are treating it all amazingly. Just treat it all the best you can. Make sure that you're applying all of your treatments to your whole head. Make sure that you are deep conditioning weekly, all of that good stuff to make sure that your hair thrives. What a lot of people do when they've got those two textures and they don't want it to be completely obvious that their ends are really damaged, so lots of people will do some kind of curling routine, like a heatless curling routine. So they might use flexi rods or bantu knots just to make sure that your whole hair looks as though it's the same texture. So you can wrap the whole thread of hair around a flexi rod, and then when it comes out it all looks as though it's the same kind of curl pattern, even though you've got one texture at the top and then straight straggly ends at the bottom. You've kind of manipulated them into a curl. But you don't want to be using heat whilst you're transitioning because you don't want to be causing more damage on top of that lovely natural texture that you've just grown. Another really bad thing about transitioning is that you need to trim really often because your ends are breaking. So when I was transitioning, I just found myself just trimming, and I was pulling at the split ends, and it was just really horrible. And I was just trimming all the time, like trimming every month, that kind of thing. I didn't want to do a big chop because I didn't want it to look so drastic that I had chopped off so much of my hair. So I wanted to get to a certain length before I was comfortable with chopping off a huge amount of hair. And lots of people have that same issue. They don't want to just chop off huge amounts of hair straight away because then that's really drastic. It might draw a bit of attention that maybe lots of people don't really want, or maybe they just feel as though their hair will be too short if they could just cut off all of the damage right away. That's a reason why lots of people transition. But there are lots of tricky things with transitioning, like for instance, you've got a lot of damaged hair. Even though your natural hair might be healthy, it does have to connect onto that damaged hair, and where it connects is really prone to breakage. It's really vulnerable because it's connecting onto all of that damaged hair. So you want to make sure that that doesn't split off, and it will cause a split in your healthy hair, and then at that point you've already got split ends before you've even started. So you need to make sure that you are treating your hair really gently, really carefully, not brushing it too hard, not rubbing it too much, and using a lot of protective styles to prevent your hair from breaking off. So then you might get to the stage like I got to, where you think, you know, my hair's at good enough length now, so no one's going to notice too much if I just chop half my hair off. And maybe you feel comfortable, maybe you're bored of all of those trims, maybe you're just bored of having those ends that you constantly need to make blend into your natural hair. You're just done with transitioning and you're ready to take the big chop. So go ahead and do that. Lots of people do it by themselves and then go and get it fixed up by a hairdresser. So I actually just topped off mine by myself, and at that point I made sure that I had no damaged hair left at all. So I probably over chopped a little bit, probably chopped off some of my healthy hair as well, but I just wanted to make sure that my ends were super healthy, and it makes the whole thing so much easier. You've got one texture of hair, so you don't need to keep manipulating it, you don't need to keep doing those flexi rods, those braid outs if you don't want to, because all of your hair looks the same, so you haven't got those ends that look completely different. So that is a huge plus if you're going to do the big chop. Another thing is that you don't need to keep trimming. Only trim if your ends become unhealthy or damaged, or if you see a lot of split ends. I wouldn't recommend a trim every 6 weeks because your ends are so healthy that you probably don't have very many split ends. There's not really much point in trimming off healthy hair. So those are the main differences between transitioning and doing the big chop. You can take the big chop whenever you want. It doesn't need to be once your hair's got to a certain length. If you're feeling bold enough, just go ahead and do it right now, and I guarantee your hair will start growing so much quicker because the ends are so much healthier and they're not continuously breaking. So when somebody says that they're transitioning and they're going through a transition journey, then what they're probably talking about is the fact that they've got two different textures on their hair, and they're having to treat their hair really carefully because they've got that vulnerable area in their hair where it joins onto the damaged part, where it's really prone to splits. So they are having to take really good care of their hair through that time that they're transitioning. So that is what a transition journey is. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this bit. So you can click on any of these which are showing on screen right now if you want to see anything more, and also you can click the bell right there to make sure you don't miss anything. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm gonna have to go and get some food because I'm starving, and goodbye.